So as far as, having models and systems in place, it's very important. So the structure of these calls have really been intentional. So we have started out with mindset, and you've heard all these different people talk, right? And it's been great listening to all these people talk. But the one thing I reviewed all of them over the weekend, and I didn't listen to all of them, but I kind of would skim through them all. The one thing that I will say that of all these successful people that we've had on these on these lunch and learns, no matter what you're in the industry, whether you're a mortgage broker, a real estate agent, have a team, have a solo agent, they all had a routine. So they all had, all their routines started in the morning. So again, what was interesting for me was to hear the different routines that people had, but they were very similar. As you went through and as you listened to all of these people, it was, hey, I get up in the morning, and it didn't really matter what time they got up, but they typically got up early. There was a lot of meditation talk, of people meditating. There was a lot of affirmation talk when you listen to these people. Another thing that everyone said is, Tony Brony just on Friday, he said, just even exercising, walking. But at the end of the day, the routines were kind of the consistent themes of everybody of how they approach this business. And we know in this business that it could be very challenging, right? At the end of the day, there's a lot of things that are getting thrown at us. So I think I know that getting up in the morning and getting your routine done was one of the key aspects of why people were very successful, right? Did you guys catch that when you were listening to them? I know a lot of you guys, like Maria, you were here a lot. Kevin, you were here a lot on a lot of them. This is going to be more of a question and answer. Did you guys see that theme?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Nico, what was the ones, what were some of the ones that you heard and saw that were kind of like, oh, I should do that, or really kind of like hit you and said like,
there's a lot of that. I mean, one of the big things is, I think, maintaining a positive mental attitude, keeping your eye on future goals, not worrying about the results, but worrying about the activities.
Right.
But then also, like, time blocking is really important. And, I got
really important and really hard too, right, Nico?
And hard, yeah. Especially when you've got voices coming from out that door right there.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's sort of like, the other thing I got a lot was just showing up is half the battle. Like, if you show up, it's like I don't feel like working out, but if I put on my gym clothes, if I just put on my gym clothes and just do a little stretching, before you know it, 9 times out of 10, you're going to finish that workout. So even just showing up, and knowing that you have to be there to do something, if you just show up, that gets you half the way there. Then it's just that next little step of effort to get to that activity to get done, So.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I agree with you 100%, right? Just showing up was half the battle. And in a lot of these people, what you also saw with these lunch and learns was a lot of the successful real estate teams focused on one thing. They had one strategy. They had one strategy that they were implementing at a high level, whether it was video or the 30, Andy Peters and Leslie Peters. We know that they've mastered the 36 touch, but they showed up and they made a decision, right? They made a decision on what they were doing. Kev, what did you pick up on? Oh, you're muted, bud. There you go.
Back in. Here we go. No, I agree with what you and Nico were just saying. Like, yeah, I mean, everybody has some sense of a routine and stuck with it pretty consistently, even if it was different, right? Like, not everybody's going to wake up at 4, not everybody, like, everybody's to each their own. Everybody's going to do different things. But they did typically have one thing that they focused on, and they were pretty regimented with it. Yeah. There were a couple examples that surprised me, not to name any names, but some like big producing agents that you could tell that they were getting by on talent.
Yeah.
And there were a couple examples of their life might be a little bit easier if they just implemented a couple systems in there. Yeah. Just had a little bit more leverage in ways. And it's clearly those people are so talented because they're doing what they're doing without a lot of systems in place. It made me think, gosh, what could they do? They just implement a couple.
Yeah.
But that's a gradual thing for everybody. I was kind of thinking back to when I got started in real estate and how most people aren't used to accountability and structure to the degree that it's a learned thing. Like you don't go from 0 to 100. And it kind of made me think back, like when I kind of got started in real estate, literally for the first year, really the only thing I tracked, all I did was just 2 appointments a week. That was the only thing I tracked.
Right.
And if you just track, so that would be my one advice to like an agent, say, listen, if you just track one thing, if you do 2 appointments a week, that's 100 appointments a year. You're going to land 70% of those clients. 75% of those are going to buy. There's your 40 to 50 deals. And that's all you have to track. Like that could be a good way so start small and and then if 5 years later you track all your contacts, all your everything, but don't think you have to go from 0 to 100 to start with something for the people that find it overwhelming.
Cool. That's awesome. That's great. Maria, what did you pick up on as far as, of the ones that you've attended, what did you pick up on mindset?
Well, I was just listening to what Kevin said. It's structure, it's consistency, and you do have to have a system in place. Yeah. And especially being at home right now, for me, that's really hard.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it?
It's difficult. It's
right.
Difficult.
Because you're in your routine and stuff like that, and then something like this, obviously, you gotta switch that up. So.
Yeah.
Got it. TC, what about you, my man? How about mindset? What were you picking up on these?
I think, well, first of all, Zaza, thank you for keeping consistent when we talk about consistency with these lunch and learns, because they're awesome. But yeah, I agree on what everyone said. I think to Kevin's point especially, it's whether you're intentionally doing it or not, there's something that got all of us to where we are, right? Yeah. To see that level of success. So it's at this point, especially focusing on that. To Maria's point, for a lot of us are in these positions, right, where there's other things going on in our homes, whether it's a partner that's working, also kids, pets, whatever it is. The biggest takeaway I've learned through all these people, especially doing this at a higher level, it's not only just like having routine, but they all know when they wake up what the one thing they have to get done. Yeah. And as long as that gets done, then they can go to bed knowing that today was a productive day, and they can move on to being the homeschool teacher or walking the dog or whatever it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as far as mindset is concerned, with that part of it, when I went back and listened to these, it was all what Nico said too. It was not only like consistency and Tommy narrowing it down to one thing, but the positivity, right? The positivity of all these people on these calls have been amazing, right? There's been no Debbie Downer. They're all kind of like, hey, this is what this is the card we've been dealt. We're going to deal with it and we're going to move forward, right? Wouldn't you guys agree with that? Yeah. So Craig, as a newer agent or newer to the business, Craig, what were you picking up on as far as people's mindset is concerned?
Well, the positivity, and I, as a new agent, I don't know, when I came into business the first time, interest rates were 21%. And I remember unemployment was at an all-time high, but regardless of what it is, the other, if it's 37% of the people are still working, and I mean, interest rates that are at a 30-year low, I look at things are always changing, and I just take this as a challenge, because regardless of what's happening now, we're always going to have our ups and downs. So I'm just I view this I view this as a actually being a new agent. I feel that from everything I read, the top 15% of the agents do all the transactions, and if anything, I feel this will just weed out the non-producers, and it's a good time for me coming into the industry.
Yeah, it's a huge opportunity, right? I mean, you're coming up, you're coming in with sort of cliche of like, you know, you're back against the wall, right? So you have nowhere to go but up, right? You know, I know Tommy and Josh started their business in 2008, right? Tommy, was it 2008 or 7?
Even better, 2007.
2007. Yeah. So, right. I mean, so you talk about walking into the business at the wrong time, right? You know, but there is no right time. And that's the reality of this. It's the activities that you need to do, right, to get where you want. So what I loved hearing of all these people is they all said they did the work, right? There was no story when you go back to them, hearing all of these people when you review them saying, oh, I just got lucky, you know, and just, yeah, and all of a sudden I just did this. They were very intentional, right? They did the work. And like to Nico's point, they typically had it time blocked, you know, to what the work was going to be and when the work was going to be and what the work was going to do, right? And we know in our world, right, certain activities are going to get you results, right? So, you know, like my business, I built my whole business off of a 33 touch, right? Of just staying in touch with my clients in a systematic way, right? If I didn't do that, I wouldn't, you know, we're still getting referrals and stuff coming in even with the pandemic. If I didn't do that, I would not be in business, right? So, but there's a system around it. So, you know, the thing about mindset is, you know, we learn in Bold that, you know, 90% of success is your mindset. And I couldn't agree with that more. And it's just having a very powerful mindset, you know, and attacking your mindset every day is very crucial. It's very important. So the other thing that the other format of this is having a strategy, right? What's your strategy, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you're a business owner. So you need to go in with, hey, you know, what's my overall strategy to my business, right? You know, and how is that strategy going to evolve, right? And and where am I going to start? So I would say like everyone needs to either, if you have a business or you're just starting, Craig, restarting in the business, what is your strategy? What is the end result? You know, I say to people when I talk to agents all the time, right? A lot of times, Maria, you've been in the business for 5 years, so you might appreciate this. A lot of people say to me, if I could just do 10 million, right? How many times have you ever heard that? They feel like that 10 million is that echelon. If I could just do 10 million in production, you know, it's almost like everything else will solve the world's problems. So I have always asked the question very intentionally. I say, that's awesome. To Kevin's point, how many appointments do you have to set to get to 10 million? And Craig, you know, being a newer agent and stuff, this is a great exercise. You need to know how many appointments you need to have to get to your result, right?
I know. It's 50.
Yeah, I know, you know.
It's 50.
How many, Kev?
It's 50. If you're, you know, I mean, you're going to get 35 of those clients, 25 of the 35 will transact with you. If your price point's 400 grand, that's 10 million.
Right.
But that's the point, right? Like there's just math behind it.
Well, the point is, right, is one, you have to know your numbers, right? You have to know, but you have to know a strategy. So Kevin said, hey, when I started the business, it was to get 2 appointments, right? 2 appointments a week. That was his strategy. So what activities is he going to do to get 2 appointments a week? Right, Kev? That's your strategy.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So again, like at the end of the day, it's like you first have to prepare yourself with mindset, right? And then you have to put a strategy in place. And then now how has the pandemic affected people's strategy? How do you think, Kev?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt it's more challenging, right? Like, you know, I used to know where my 2 appointments a week could come from pretty consistently, or my teams. Right. So we've had to get creative, open houses, this, that. Things are different. There's no doubt about it, right? So your strategy has to evolve, but every strategy is going to be different. But
well, it has to evolve, right, Kev? But you're still doing it. You know,
yeah.
You just have to shift a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So instead of like, if you go back to Brian Buffini, right? His thing was, you know, writing personal notes, doing pop buys, right? Doing business to business meetings, right? Well, you can't do a pop by, you know, technically to somebody's house now, but you can do a virtual one, right?
Yeah.
You know, you can do a Zoom call, right? So the foundational principle of the strategy is still there, right? But at the end of the day, you just have to pivot a little bit of, all right, how do I do it now, right? How am I going to do it? Because we're at this stay at home.
Yeah, I think the other thing that kind of was a good reinforcing for me and would be good for other agents is that, you've got really successful individuals and teams doing big volumes and things like that. But nobody is really doing anything that's special or outside our skill set, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's like I'm not on a Zoom here with Elon Musk putting people on the moon, right? Like that's outside my skill set. I don't have that.
Right.
But like people have just done it longer. They've done it more consistently. They have a system behind it. But like, if I'm so inclined, Joe, you're not doing anything I can't do.
Right.
Like you're, no offense, but like, you're not like innately smarter than me or this or that, or know better people or whatever, right? Like that, you get the point that I'm making, right? And I think for new agents, they think that somebody who does 10 million or like it's this elusive thing. They must be doing something so special. They know they've got this secret sauce. They know how Facebook ads work. Something that you don't have.
Yeah.
And that's the point. You can have your niche and your strategy, but nobody's doing anything that special.
Sorry, guys. I just put someone on the moon. What did I miss?
Well, then you're outside my wheelhouse.
Actually, Tommy, you're at the moon, right?
I'm in the moon right now. Yes, I'm in Mars. You know what? It's what you were just saying, both you and Kevin. This is perfect. I don't know how many of you are watching the Last Dance documentary on the Bulls and the Jordan. Last night's episode was when MJ went to play baseball. Mm-hmm. And there was a great scene. I know this guy was your client, Tim Grover. That's his name, right? His trainer. Yeah. You look at a guy like MJ. He's a natural-born athlete, God-given talent, just athleticism. Right. But he still recognized that, hey, I have the talent, but my muscles are like basketball muscles. So now I got to work out and focus on the muscles that I need to be better at baseball. Sorry, my daughter just turned the lights off. So that's exactly it strung a chord with me with what you were saying too, because we have the talent and everything we need, but we, at this point, to your point, I know that I can still get appointments right now.
Right.
But I just have to focus on different muscles that work around me being successful doing them virtually, right? Yeah. Making the same kind of calls, but changing the content that I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
So it's just that. It's just us right now in the gym focusing on our other, baseball muscles right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're absolutely right, TC. And it's like just focusing on those different reps, but you're still doing reps, right? The foundational principle of doing the reps hasn't changed, but you're still doing the reps. So ironically enough, Quinn, I see Quinn on here, and Quinn and I had a conversation with Brian, her team lead on Friday, right? And, Brian said to me, and Quinn, you can chime in here too. He said he's always been stuck at like the 14 to 16 million, right? He just said, he's like, what's the secret sauce? I can't get over that, like whatever. And I said, he's like, how did you do it? He asked me, and I said, Brian, listen, I'm not selling more than, 14 to 16 million dollars personally. The only thing that's different between yourself and myself is systems and people, right? Brian's been in the business for a long time, and I know he wouldn't mind telling me this, but we're just now building his systems out, right? So he's like, at the end of the day, I needed a system, right? So we know now we have to have a positive mindset. We have to have the right mindset, right? We have to have a strategy we just talked about. And then now we're going to talk about what are the systems that we need, right? Does anyone know what systems they need to operate a real estate business? What system should we be focusing on? What's one? I know Coach K knows one.
Tracking where your business is coming from.
Okay, so expenses, you mean? Or just like lead
generation.
Lead generation. Okay.
Knowing that, that was a big thing for Josh and I. We were that, right? We were that just running off adrenaline. And then when we hit our ceiling and we were plateauing year over year, working harder but seeing the same results, the first thing we realized is we needed systems. And the first system we needed was, okay, we weren't tracking where our business was coming from. And because obviously there's a story, there's a trend.
Yeah.
Where you're seeing the most success, and then, okay, maybe just focus on that harder and more intentionally. Yeah. Which then led us to that 36 touch.
Absolutely, right? That's your first system. So guys, if you're a newer agent, right, or you're an agent that's been around, but you don't have a lead generation system, you need to come up with one. And whatever one you come up with is okay. At least do something, right? So Abe Shreve, who was on, right, he said to me, and I brought this up, you know, the best thing that he ever said to me is, he said, you know, people come to me all the time and say, hey, what should I be doing? Or what CRM should I be using? Or what shiny object is going to catapult my business, right? And his advice was so great. He said, let's talk about what you want to do. What will you do? Will you pick up the phone? You know, and if the answer is yes, it's really easy, then pick up the phone. If the answer is no, then it's going to say, all right, what will you do then? Is it text messages? Is it personal notes? Is it, you know, what is it? Because whatever it is, you have to become the best at that, and you have to enjoy it, right? Like, you have to enjoy what you're doing, and you have to go over and do it. So if cold calling is not in your wheelhouse, then don't do it, right? But become the best, you know, social media person, or become the best handwritten note person. Whatever it is, you can build a massive business if you just perfect one thing, right? So lead generation system, and that's obviously the most important. Does anyone else know what other systems? I can go through them.
I mean, a contract management system.
Well, so a buyer system, right? Mm. So you need a system around buyers, right? So if you know, again, they need to have the same experience. So Kevin Hinton, right? He had an open house system, you know, when he got into the business. But today, if something happens to Kevin Hinton, or something happens to me, or something happens to anyone on this call, if you have a system in place, guess what happens, right? Somebody can come into that system, right, and take over for you. But if you're just operating like I did for so long on just talent, you know, you can't teach people that. You can't say, there's no system. You know, you can say like, hey, listen, yeah, that's great. Just go show them some properties and see what it is. But if you have an actual system for, let's talk for the buyers of, hey, when a buyer lead comes in, X, Y, and Z happens, right? And then I go to the buyer meeting. And at the buyer meeting, I say X, Y, and Z, and I get the buyer agreement signed. When you have that system, your business operates at a high level, right? So a buyer system is one. Lead generation system is one. Buyer system is two. Seller system, right? You need a system for your sellers, right? What is your seller system? What happens, again, when a lead comes in, right? What questions are you asking them? What's the flow chart, right? So again, my recommendation to everyone, if you do not have these systems, one, I can help you with them, but two, also go to YouTube, go to, if you're with Keller Williams, go to Command, you know, go on there and start looking around. But like what I did for my seller system was I interviewed all the top listing agents in the country. The first person I called was Lance Loken, and the second person I called was Jeff Glover. Okay, Jeff Glover is selling 1,100 homes. His team's selling 1,100 homes, with 70% of them being listings, right? And Lance Loken is selling, what is Lance selling now? 2,200 homes, TC? Something like that. 2,200 homes a year. So you go right to the people who are doing it at a high level and say, hey, what is your system? What are you doing for this? I didn't reinvent it, right? I just took bits and pieces, and then I went and watched videos and said, hey, this is what's working, right? This is what's working for these people. This is how it will work in my market, and let's implement it. The other thing about these systems is, do not beat yourself up. Be fluid with them, right? They're not going to be perfect the first time that you try it, right? But you have to try it. going back to another thing, another piece of advice is practice it, right? So Quinn and Brian, right? They have 4 that we built out the buyer system for them. They have 4 opportunities to practice this system right now, which is huge and is not always going to happen. But I told them, I said, hey, listen, at the end of the day, you need to schedule time to practice this. So then when you go in and you finally get a chance in the batter's box, or the coach finally gets you to say, hey, you're in, let's go. You're practicing it, right? You know what to expect. You know what the language is. You know what the system is going to be. So Maria, the names of those people were Jeff Glover. He's out of Detroit, Michigan. Glover. And then Lance Loken, Loken. He's out of Houston, Texas. So they're exactly. So just go follow them. People are doing this at a high level, and people did it before them. So go follow them. So have a lead generation system, have a buyer system, have a seller system, have a financial system. Okay. It's very important to know your numbers as far as in TC. That's where I thought you were going earlier, but like have a financial system, meaning what am I spending, right? What are my expenses? What are my costs of sale? What's my ROI, right? What's my budget? What can I spend within? And track those numbers. I will tell you, most of those people on these calls, they know their numbers. They know how much they're spending. They know how much their cost of sale is. Cost of sale is obviously paying out a brokerage or paying out a referral fee or paying out an agent, whatever you're doing. So know your numbers on that and have a financial system. All right.
Zaza, can I add something on that? Please. Financial system? The importance of budgeting, where Josh and I learned firsthand, that goes hand in hand as a direct conduit to your lead generation system. In the sense of this, we don't, to what Abe said to you, Josh and I don't like calling like strangers, like cold calls. I don't like doing FSBOs and expireds. So we focus our database, right? So that's where we pour into. And so for us to try a lead generation system in the past, whether it was like client appreciation party, some sort of automated gift touch program, what would happen is we would say, okay, let's try it out. And then because we didn't have money budgeted out for it, we put ourselves on a shorter shot clock to see high levels of success in a short period of time, which that's not going to happen. Meaning after a month, and we saw maybe 1 lead come through from it, we were freaking out because we just spent all this money into this. Right. We got to cut the cord now, right? The power in budgeting is when we budgeted out for something that we forecasted to do for a year, we gave that lead generation platform a longer runway for that plane to take off, where we know in 30 days to see results is very tough. So now though, because we budgeted out 12 months worth, now it had 12 months to really grow its legs and see what we could do, and then assess, is this something that's working? Should we pull the plug on it then? Yes,
absolutely. And what TC, thanks so much for sharing that, because the other thing too that's important for you guys to know is I think the biggest failure that we all have is we think that this is going to happen overnight, right? That we're going to implement something, and TC, you just said 12 months, right? Hey, listen, we know if you farm a building or a neighborhood, okay, we know that for every 50 people that you farm, you should get 1 transaction from that. Now that's 1 transaction after you've been doing that for a year, right? So again, if it's a building of 200, that's 4 transactions a year. So how much is it costing me to mail to that building, right? What's the average price point? And then I have to do that for a year, and then year 2, right? I can expect four deals out of that, right? You guys follow me on that? So you guys know those numbers. But again, have the financial system of knowing it, and if you have questions about the financial system, in the Red Book, it's right there. It's fact, right? So it will teach you exactly, hey, what I should be spending on what percentages should I allocate for lead generation? What percentage should I allocate to pay salaries? What percentage should I allocate for whatever, anything for your business? So if you need any help with that, or you need that formula, obviously go to the Red Book. I have spreadsheets and stuff like that as well. So let me know if I can help anyone with that. All right. So everyone, we got this. Okay. The last system is your organizational system, your org chart, right? Should you have high hopes of building a team, whether it's a team of 3 or it's a team of 30, right? You need to have an org chart system. How are you going to hire these people? Who is your next hire, right? What is the job description for that person, right? Again, how are you going to find that person, right? What are they going to do? These are all the systems parts that you're going to have to put together for your business. So have an org chart system. So my recommendation to people is, Maria and I were talking before people jumped on, is she's been in the business for 5 years, right? I've heard, one of the more profound things I heard Gary Keller say that I've mentioned a couple of times is that people overestimate what they can do in a year and they underestimate what they can do in 5. So Craig, I'm seeing you here, right? You're getting back into this business. Don't put a 1-year plan together. Start with the 5-year plan and then back into it, right? And part of that 5-year plan are the systems that we just went over. And one of them saying, what does your business look like? Who is involved in 5 years, right? Who's there? Meaning, do you have a buyer's agent? Do you have a listing agent? Is it just you, right? Whatever it is, you need to have a 5-year plan on there. And that's where that organizational system will help you get there. Got it? Anyone have any questions there? Alex, you got a question for later on? Alex, why don't you just unmute yourself and we'll talk about it. Yeah.
Well, so a lot of the speakers have been speaking about like leveraging or starting a team just to increase the success for their business. For you guys that have, the team leaders, you guys think, was that always a goal for you guys, or did it just kind of happen? So the reason I ask is just because I have managed before in a previous industry, and that is not something that
you enjoy doing.
Desire to, I don't have any desire. That will probably change down the line as my business grows, obviously. Sure. But was that always something that you guys thought was going to happen, or no?
I'll let a couple other people chime in, but Maria and I, again, we're having this conversation, and I really just it was just kind of like, I couldn't give that level of service. It was by default that I built a team, because I couldn't give the level of service that I wanted. As you build your team up, as you build your business up and it starts to snowball, you can't be in all these places at once, right? So you have to find leverage, right? Right. So Alex, when you go back to the Red Book and the triangles, leads, listings, and leverage, right? So to get, even if you say, hey, I don't want to manage people and I want to get to, I want to get to 50 transactions, you're going to have no life, right? Unless you find the leverage, right? So again, this is just factual stuff doing it. To speak to your point on not managing people, a lot of these teams, and the right way of doing it, Alex, is that you're really only managing 1 person or 3 people, depending on how big your team is. And then they manage everybody else, right? So at the end of the day, if you look at this, if you're the real president or the CEO of the company, you should have a director of operations, right? A director of sales and a director of lead generation. If you have those 3 people, if you have leaders in those 3 seats and you're just managing them, trust me, Alex, the one thing I will tell you is you're only managing them, and 2, if they're the right people, they're really managing you, at the end of the day. The talent will get you out of the way. That answer your question?
I'll speak to that a little bit, Alex. So to speak personally, like my team, it's very much evolved. So I certainly didn't know, when I started, okay, cool, year 5, I want to be doing X number of units. It was not all super mapped out in my head at all. That was not me. Maybe some people would. But what I kind of figured out that helped is all the building blocks were exactly the same, whether I wanted to turn into a team that sold 1,000 units or a team that sold 50 units with one buyer's agent and one ad, something like that, right? It was all the same. So it was like building a skyscraper that I didn't know if it was going to be 100 stories or 4, but it wasn't scary, because if I decided to stop at level 6, because that produced the right amount of income for me, or if I wanted to build a 100-story skyscraper, you just kept adding on. It's just the same. And it wasn't like I had to commit to something, but what if I don't know how big my team wants to be, or what if I don't know? I got, it was easier to get my head wrapped around when I figured it was all the same building blocks, and we'll see where I stop.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So that helped me get my head wrapped around.
Cool. All right, guys. So remember, let's go through it. Remember the format of this. Mindset, most important. Get your mindset set, right? Have a strategy. What is your strategy right now, right? So, and no matter whatever the strategy is, right, in the current environment, have something. You can obviously pivot, but have something. Have the systems, right? There's 5 of them, all right? Remember, lead generation system, the first one that TC brought up, most important. If you're don't have leads, you cannot eat, right? Then you're gonna have a buyer system. Typically, that'll probably be, if you're a newer agent, that'll probably be the first system that you build out, because you're getting more buyers than sellers. If it's the opposite, then build out your seller system, right? Financial system, know the numbers, know what your budget's supposed to look like. And then your organizational system. Should you decide that you want to build a team out, what does that look like? Who is hiring when? If it's just you and somebody else, that's okay as well. You still need an organizational system. You still need, who am I hiring? What are they doing? How am I hiring them? When are they starting? Right? The last thing, guys, is tools. What tools are you going to use to run your business? A lot of us with Keller Williams are using Command, right? That's our platform that's out there. But no matter who you're with, use tools not as shiny objects, but use tools as, how can they help impact my business? And the answer to that is like, where do I start, or which one do I find, or whatever? They all work at some sort of capacity. They really do. Okay. These tools are not built by people that are saying, oh, I want to build this so it doesn't work. It's just, how hard are you going to engage with it, right? And how willing are you to make it work for you, right? So if your tool is a notepad, right, and an appointment book, awesome. If it works for you, don't change it, right? If it's an Excel spreadsheet or a Google sheet and it works for you, don't change it. But there are tools out there, right, that help enhance your business. But at the end of the day, you have to commit to using them for them to work. You just have to, right? Do not think that they're going to do the work for you. I promise you they won't. Kevin and Tommy and Kara and some of you guys and Nico that know me well and know my business. I mean, I'm like the shiny object king. I was, at least until I changed my ways. I would chase everything to say, oh man, yeah, this is really going to enhance my business. This is going to do it. And I would buy it, and it would sit there, and I would see the subscription pile up, and I keep paying for it and keep paying for it. And everyone would be like, how's it going? And I'm like, it's not, because I'm not doing anything with it. Right. So at the end of the day, be committed to it. Don't go buy everything. Just pick one tool that works for you and use it at a high level. All right.
Zaza.
Yeah.
What you just said, it's like, I always think about it. If I had a chance to sit down with the #1 chef in the world, I'm not going to be asking him or her, what kind of pans do you use? What kind of knife do you use?
Right.
Because that's not what makes their food good, right? I want to know, what spices did you use? How did you put this recipe together? And then, to your point, as I master some of these techniques, sure, then it might matter what kind of knife I use,
right,
because it's going to make me cut better or whatnot. But totally agree with what you're saying.
Absolutely. And TC, that's where we're going to end. And where we're going to end is my biggest advice, and what I have learned from these lunch and learns is master the fundamentals. Just master the fundamentals. It's like John Wooden, right? UCLA head coach, most winningest coach, I think, still of all time. What did he say? He said he coached to master the fundamentals, right? Master the fundamentals of the business. And the fundamentals of the business is lead generation, right? So, I mean, honestly, so master that and you're gonna do well. You will do well in this business. Guys, our 45 minutes is up. I appreciate you being here. Jessica Starr, thanks, Maria. Jessica Starr is going to be here tomorrow. A lot of you guys know Jessica. She owns the state of Connecticut when real estate is concerned. You know, she is actually going to talk about present over perfect in a work-life counterbalance. She's had a pretty impactful story to share with us in a huge business. So she'll be here tomorrow to present. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for being here. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.